Okay, this is about the idle circuit on a Triumph 955 injection. This is a 1999 model, and you probably recognise. So what you have here is a stepper motor to control the idle speed, and what it does is it bleeds air past these mechanical throttles that you control with the throttle. So that's me operating the throttle, and when it's shut, this is allowing air to slip past those. The trick here I discovered is this casing has got 4 holes on the back, and only 3 of them are open to be operated. It's developed for a 4-cylinder engine, not a 3. This is 3, a triple. And what you need to do when you're connecting these hoses, make sure you don't connect to the one which is blocked. You can see the pattern here, and otherwise you won't be passing air on 1 cylinder, and it will tick over in a very lumpy way, because you probably have to be idling on 2 cylinders instead of 3. So the other interesting thing, and why I'm making this video, is how this stepper motor behaves. A lot of people replace this thinking it's the fault. Actually, it's the split hoses that Triumph use. They pop off, or you can see I've replaced these in quite a neat way. I've tried to avoid tight bends. That's one thing you need to do, otherwise you can crimp it. If you want to take the engine, if you want to get down to this level, there is a procedure I'll explain in a minute. But what's interesting is how this works with the ignition. So I've got the ignition on, and I've got the kill switch operated. You can see it's about halfway down. Now if I've got the lights off to save power. If I press the engine start position, what happens, you hear the click. Sorry, so I turn the ignition on. So by switching this on and off, you get this moving. So that is run, and then I press the kill switch. You see it goes up to close off the idle, and then it goes back to the reset position ready for starting. So my feeling is if the engine's running, this piston, the servo moves it upwards to kill the idle revs, and once it senses from the electronics that the engine stopped firing, it then goes back into the ready to start position. So if I press the run position, it will open a little bit more, and if I press the kill position, it comes up, waits a second, and then travels down. That's without me touching anything. So that is a correctly working servo, correctly wired hoses, and they're all off. You have to synchronize these throttles, by the way, in a way with these running in the idle position, and do these synchro screws. If you've got any of these incorrect or crimped, you can't synchronize the throttles. So you need to make sure this is working and all the pipes are clear and correctly connected before you try and sync throttles on this engine. So that's it. I'll just go through the removal procedure. Now this bike is a bit of a bitch because it's got this aftermarket carrier on it, but what I found is rather than take this whole rear assembly off, which weakens these bolts and it means the luggage is going to come off, you can just pop these 2 6mm bolts and then use a couple of blocks to unplug these upper and lower ones by pulling it. You can spread these and then mark up your petrol connectors. You'll find that the one which goes to this top rail is actually the one forward here. So this is the green one, and the one which is the return, which goes directly to the tank, it goes on the other end of this tank. So there's that's the feed end here, and this is the return which goes to the back of the pipe. You also need to release the electrical connector on the tank, and there's the other one on the bottom which you can't get to unless you lift this up. So what I do, I take out this bolt and these 2 bolts, that's all you need to do, These are TORX. I think the bit is a certain type of Torx bit, but you get those two out, and then you can lift this up, place a block of wood, I use this, which is about 10 inches long, under the tank, and it allows you to get access to disconnect these things. You have to press these buttons with your finger so they move up, like, where are we? Like so. You have to press them against the spring, and the same with the one under there, otherwise it's not going to give way. Now they always say always get yourself the O-rings, which are these, because they don't last forever. So if you're a bit careless getting them out, you need to replace these, but I've found I can reuse those. I think the reason they get damaged is because people release this, they get it out halfway, and then they let go of this spring pressure, and as it's coming out it tears on this steel clip. So if you keep the spring pressure on all the way until the O-ring is clear, you won't get them damaged by that cutting edge. So you've got the connectors here. This is the vacuum pipe which goes on here. Where's that gone at the moment? And you've got a breather hose which a pair of pliers will pull down. There's two Torx bolts here to release the air filter, but if you want to get the tank off, I suggest you leave these two pipes on and pull them out the bike, because it's a fuel breather, and if you pull them off you might start a siphoning effect of fuel dripping out, depending how you put your tank. I've put the tank this way up, but you may want to put the tank another way up. Watch out it doesn't leak out the top here and then it'll be pissing out here. So I would say put something soft under here and you're good to go. So the pipe which goes to this fuel tap control vacuum is actually off on the air filter assembly. This just comes off. We've got the pliers pinching that one I showed you for the breather, and the two bolts which go in here, and then this just wiggles off. But what I would suggest you do is, you see this air mass sensor is a 19mm thread here. What I've done is I've picked this spring clip out with a little screwdriver and pull this sideways. You can then pull the connector off and then get a 19mm spanner and take this out. I'll tell you why, because if you want to have this running with the air filter off, you will get an engine management fault if the ignition goes on without this connected. So you want the things connected. Incidentally, I've taken this rubber off just so you can see the two mounting screws if you do want to remove it. But I've had two of these servos thinking it was the fault. Total waste of time. It was actually the pipes needed changing. And I've got these fuel pipes because there's not enough room for Jubilee clips in here. So these are fuel pipe hose clips, nice and compact, and they wrap all the way around instead of a D shape like a Jubilee clip. So there you go. And this is the air mass sensor, and this is the other sensor which wiggles out of the I think it's a vacuum sensor or something, and that plugs in to this hole here, so you can just wiggle that out, and that way you can remove this air filter completely without fearing of an engine management, and push that back in to reconnect it, and I'm not going to get an engine management fault. If I did, the solution to reset it is to get the diagnostic plug. You can get a USB adapter for this diagnostic. It's OBD2 I think on the Triumph. It cost about £5, and it plugs into any laptop or notebook, and you can then download the free Triumph tuning software, and it will allow you in the menus to go in and press the reset button. Otherwise the light which comes up on the dashboard could stay on for a long time. I've heard that maybe it goes off after an hour's running or something like that, but last time I started the engine without this connected, it came up and it wouldn't go off for days, so I got the laptop out and reset it. So that tells you just about everything about how this works. The only thing that's left is to get it running. Now, it is possible to have the tank on a tall bar stool here, and it's just about enough room. You may have to remove this side panel completely to reconnect these hoses and wires so that you can actually have the engine running for the purposes of synchronizing these screws and checking everything else is alright. But there is also, about the idle setting, because this is electronically controlled, your idle speed is actually software set, not adjustable here. So if you want to reduce your tick over because you want a little bit more engine braking, or annoy the neighbours a bit less when you starting and idling around at home, then what you need to do, you can't adjust this. You have to go and plug in the laptop through the ODB, and there is a setting in the Triumph free software which allows you to change the idle speed. You can also change the fuel map and reset the faults and several other things, but the only way to change the idle speed on this bike reliably is to plug in a laptop. Crazy, I know, but once you've got the hang of it, it works.